So if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Neil Fincham-dukes. I am the Managing Director of the Lucky Onion Group of Hotels, Restaurants and Bars in the southwest of England. And I'm also the Chief Executive of Cocoa Plus, which is a new tech startup helping corporate entities become more environmentally friendly.
Perfect, sounds great. So if you'd like to go ahead and just start by, listing some of your maybe strengths and weaknesses.
So my strengths, I think I am good at understanding what my weaknesses are, which I think is quite an important skill. Nobody has a full basket of capabilities, and being able to identify the areas where you're a bit weaker allows you to build teams around you, which through combined effort can allow you to achieve much greater things than on your own. I'm also I would say a good manager of people. I think I am able to understand and individualize the requirements of members of my teams and be able to manage them in a manner which is appropriate for each individual on their own basis. And again, I think that allows you to get a lot more out of your people than just being a blanket approach type manager. In terms of weaknesses, I can often get frustrated by having to go through the detail of things. I'm not a natural detail completer finisher type person. So I often have to make sure that I've got people in my team who can take on and finish the projects and tasks that I've started. And I can also be quite demanding in terms of the pace of change. And I think sometimes I forget that other people perhaps don't like to work as quickly as I do. And that can cause frustration and challenges at times.
Yeah, everybody's different, and sort of going off of that, does your management style change when you're dealing with different people, or do you like to keep it constant and sort of?
I definitely think my management style changes, and I think in my opinion, it should change. I don't think you can expect to get the best reactions out of people by adopting a one-size-fits-all policy. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. Everybody has different motivational styles. Everybody has different ways that they're inspired by tasks at work and they want to get on with things. It's about understanding your individuals and how you can maximize the most potential from them by adapting your management style and helping them to achieve what they can.
Yeah, definitely. So when you hire these new candidates and obviously you're trying to fit them into the team, what are the sort of important qualities that you're looking for?
I think for me, because I think a large part of the success I've had in management is by building teams, I have to be confident that they will fit into the team. I think there's quite a lot of work I put in to try and understand the types of personalities that will come together that will form a strong team unit, and making sure that the people that come into your team don't disrupt the existing team or don't diverge where you're trying to get to because of the way that they approach things, I think is really, really important. That being said, I forgot the question, Jake.
So I asked you, what are the most important qualities when adding people to the team when you?
Oh yeah, sorry. So yeah, the type of person that they are, whether they'll fit into the team, and whether that will bring benefit to the team. That's key. And secondly, I think there's some core competencies which I look for, which might not be necessarily skill-based. They're more personality traits as well. So people who are highly motivated, people who are ambitious, people who are trying to achieve a lot, people who are curious as well. People who are curious tend to try and find their own solutions to problems rather than rely on being spoon-fed information. And I think, particularly in my new business, Cocoa, being a kind of startup environment, it's really important that the people who've got on the team are inquisitive and trying to solve problems at the pace that we need them to. So for me, mostly it's about finding the right type of person with the right type of competencies in terms of their personality traits to fit into the team. My belief is, and it's not always true, obviously, but skills can be taught. If you've got the right person with the right attitude, you can teach them quite a lot. Obviously, there are skills. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, you have to have certain training and understanding and knowledge base. That's evident. But in the business I run at the minute, I am much more focused on getting the right people into the job rather than people who say they've got the right skills.
No, exactly. And obviously dealing with people who may have different personalities and different ways of doing things, I'm sure conflict arises within your team. How do you then deal with that?
Conflict, I think, is inevitable. I think it's something that you deal with probably on a daily basis. In some scale, I think there's a whole spectrum of conflict from full blown huge challenges you have to face down to disagreements in how to undertake a particular process or challenge. And I think the key for managing conflict is usually about openness, honesty, and speed of communication. The longer you let challenges or conflicts fester and develop, more often than not, the harder it is to unpick it and put a team back on the right path. So for me, it's by identifying that there is a conflict or there's a challenge to be resolved. It's about being open and honest with people right up front with that, making sure that everyone understands what the conflict is, what the potential issues are around that, and how it could affect people, and then trying to deal with it quickly so it doesn't become a longer term issue that is more difficult to unravel.
Is that true to sort of when dealing with conflict outside of your team, maybe you've had with vendors or something like that?
I think so. I think there's basic principles there, which are, honesty, openness, communication, speed, and a desire. I mean, quite often as well, actually, in conflict, can be about compromise. Trying to find a middle ground that everyone can be comfortable with, rather than trying to win every single battle so that you hold all the cards. If you do that, then the person on the other side of the conflict often feels demotivated, uninterested, and you can lose it. So, yeah, honesty, openness, communication, compromise, they're often the ways that I think you best resolve conflict.
Yeah, and obviously still staying on teams, how do you know when it's sort of time to expand your team, when there's a missing cog, perhaps?
I think there are a couple of indicators there. I think when you're managing a team closely, you can tell when they are overstretched. That if your business is growing or the department's growing or the amount of projects a particular area of business has on are too much, the quality of work, stress levels amongst your team, they often manifest themselves pretty quickly. That's usually a fairly strong indicator that you might need to upscale your resourcing for that area of the business. Poor quality performance, poor customer feedback, particularly in the hotel side of things. We are incredibly busy at the minute, post-COVID. Everyone's come out to see us in the hotels and restaurants and bars that we run. And equally, we're going through a staffing shortage at the moment in the hospitality industry in the UK. So trying to balance those needs, and it's really evident when you walk into our businesses at the moment, for me, I know them so well, that they are struggling, and that trying to find extra resource to bolster the team numbers is at the moment our number one priority. And you can tell all those things through the quality of service that the customers are getting, the team morale, all those things are self-evident, and it all points to the fact that they need more team members to help them.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So you've also been manager of the Lucky Onion for a few years now. What expectations did you have before stepping into that role, and have they been met?
I think I took this role on. It was a progression for me because I wanted to understand how to run a company, rather than an individual site or hotel or restaurant. And for me, that means being in charge of the head office function, being in charge of all the things that go inside that, the finance, the human resource, the marketing, the operations, the food, all those elements sit under my purview now. And my expectations were that it was going to be a challenge to do that. Did I understand quite how challenging it would be? No, I didn't. And I think a lot of that comes down to a large part of your work as you progress up the scale, I think, as I found, is about stakeholder management. So I have a incredibly successful entrepreneurial owner of the business. He owns it outright, and he has demands and puts pressures on us to achieve things in a certain time frame, which can be really difficult. And then trying to marry those demands with those guys at the junior end of the business, the waiting staff are on the floor working really long hours for relatively low pay, trying to marry all those expectations together and keep a business pointed in the right direction can be really challenging. And it's certainly way more challenging than I probably anticipated.
So I mean, obviously dealing with those challenges as a manager, is there a situation you wish you'd sort of dealt with better?
Yes. Yeah.
One that sticks into your mind.
So when we, our holiday year runs from the beginning of October through till the end of September. And the first lockdown in 2020, obviously people weren't at work for 3 or 4 months, and they didn't use their holiday entitlement. So when the workforce is at work in the UK, you accrue on a monthly basis a couple of days holiday each month that you're allowed to take as annual leave. And obviously because they were at home and they weren't working, they didn't get to take that. So they finished the end of the year with quite a lot of unused holiday, which I misinterpreted the rules and legislation that the government put into place, believing that the government were asking us to carry all that holiday entitlement over into the next year. And because of the pressures of post-COVID, because of me having a smaller team at head office level as well, I didn't give myself the space and time to really understand that problem and go through the detail. Like I said, one of my weaknesses has often been about the detail. And I allowed everyone to carry their holiday over when I didn't have to do so. I could have made a much more commercial decision and not done that. And that's created problems this year because people now have all the holiday they accrue in this new financial year, which started October 2020 and we're now running through now. And they haven't been able to take that holiday either because of the lockdowns and because we've been so busy. So people are coming to the end of this financial year with a huge stack of holiday that they haven't been able to take. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to let them take it on going further because that comes at a financial cost to the company, which is significant. So, if I'd taken a bit more time to understand the processes right at the start and really give myself the breathing space to think it through, I wouldn't have undertaken the same course of action I did, and I wouldn't have the problem that I'm about to face in the next month or so. I'm trying to negotiate with the teams on how much holiday they won't be able to take forward.
Yeah, I'm sure that might leave a few people a bit disappointed. So just lastly, how would you personally define success?
I think too often we try and define success by looking at other people. And I think we get too tied up in the success of other people and trying to compare yourself to it. I think there's a much stronger argument to say that success is a function of your capabilities and your ambition. I think everybody has a different level of ambition and capability. And when you multiply the two together, that can achieve all sorts of different things. But somebody who has lower ambitions, let's say, with lower capabilities, if they reach their potential, to me, that's success. And you can see that the hospitality is a great leveler. There's all sorts of positions, right down from the guy who's cleaning, washing up in the kitchen, right the way through to the general managers who are running multi-million-pound sites. And quite often the guys in the kitchen who are doing the junior jobs, they're smashing it out their job and they are really achieving in their position, whereas the general managers are struggling and they're not being as successful as the KP is in their role. And for me, that's really quite important. I think there's far too much time spent on analysing external success and trying to compare people, whether it be job titles or money you earn or whatever that might be, when actually it's a function of what did you really want to achieve out of life, and do your capabilities allow you to do that? And if it does, that's the measure of your success.
Yeah, that's great. Everyone has different goals and different needs in order to meet them.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time. That was great.
No problem.